today I wanted to discuss all the evidence that the forward-facing painting of Joseph Smith was actually from life and not after death. And so there's like a lot of ground to cover with that. My health has been pretty much a complete roller coaster the last 5 or so years. Having HEDS and POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, it depletes me of my energy. I had a root canal recently, and just an infection with that, and it just destroyed my energy. It was just gone. Definitely makes me cranky. I'm in pain all the time. Like it's a struggle. I try to be positive when I pray, and I try to think of things I'm grateful for, and I try to stay away from negativity. But obviously affects the whole last 5 years, really affected my ability to do a whole lot or work too hard on the YouTube channel or on my videos. So hopefully today's a little bit better. I know many of you watch me because you're afraid of what I'm going to say. I just know that I'm only doing this because I care about the truth, because I've researched so much and I know so much. And there's a lot of people out there that are just spreading, just drives me, just like, no, that's just not true, And so you'll see some of that. I'm not going to name names or anything. But if you're not familiar with HEDS, it's short for hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It's a connective tissue disorder that makes your connective tissue really loose, straight sheets, more lax than normal and thin. And that includes my heart, my arteries, my blood vessels, it leads to blood pooling, like right now, feeling of a lack of air. And it took me a long time to realize this is not asthma, it's something different. Sounding spacey, sounding high when I'm not. Only times I ever been was post-op. So I may sound stupid, but I'm not stupid, guys. Now, I want to tell you to know that I don't mean any disrespect towards anyone that believes the forward-facing painting of Joseph Smith was made post-mortem, or the Carter or Library of Congress books are real photos of a man and not a painting. My point in making this channel really was just to share the evidence and share my work with you guys. And I would say in the first 5 years of having this channel, it was just very, very positive. And mean comments were like zilch. I remember like 2 mean comments in the whole 5 years. But by 2022, it became psychological warfare. And so people had been nice before, and they were supportive. It suddenly became very demeaning and condescending and very personal accounts. Like they don't want to just talk about the facts or the historical facts. It's just put down, attacks, rage. So, it's like bullies will just do all they can just to get a reaction. And sometimes I only understand it, and they know that I might be the only person that gets that it's another dig, or that they're quoting someone that I highly respect in a rude way, that they're mocking someone. But I can't control other people. I understand that. I'm not going to try to. But it's okay, women, to stand up for yourself. Sometimes it's okay to be like, put your foot down. And I did recently, and I was emotional, but I don't think it was to be super angry. It's just what it is. But moving on. So Joseph Smith III's memoirs is the first thing we're going to touch on. It does note that in July of 1885, he met with the Utah photographer Charles Carter. Said, in Salt Lake, at that time, was a photographer by the name of Carter. I made his acquaintance, possibly sat for some photographs. And so this resulted in Carter sketches that were copyrighted by Charles W. Carter in 1885. Okay, so these dates are important. I'm going to repeat the dates a lot, probably. These pictures were alleged to be copied from the daguerreotype. He also photographed Joseph Smith III's photograph of the forward-facing painting. which I have analyzed on my channel, the Library of Congress photo, and found that the Carter photograph, not the sketches, was the best likeness to the forward-facing painting. So the Library of Congress one is just squashed a little bit, and if you imagine all this India ink and all these things are doing to tweak and get rid of the background, it would get the paper wet. What it sounds like. I'm not an 1800s photographer. I've never worked with India ink, but a lot was going on, so I just think the paper curled. That's why there's a slight difference. I'll put a link to my video where I did my sketch overlays and showed exactly how much of an exact match Carter's picture is compared to the Library of Congress one. The nose is just, it's not Joseph's nose. And they all have the same wrong nose, same wrong narrow mouth. It was an artistic liberty. It's not camera distortion. But just watch that video and you'll understand. But next, we're going to see that, again, he said it was summer 1885 that he met with Carter, right? Then you've got August 26, 1885. It's still summer, end of summer. The Deseret News states, portraits of the prophet C.W. Carter, photographer of this city, has in his possession a daguerreotype portrait of the prophet Joseph Smith taken in Nauvoo in the year 1843, probably within a year of his death. The old acquaintances of the illustrious man to whom it has been shown pronounce it an excellent likeness. We have always been of the opinion that the busts and most of the pictures of him in existence make him appear too effeminate looking. And this portrait tends to confirm that opinion. The face shown appears to be stronger and more mature looking, the head broader, and I kind of put in brackets wider because that's the same thing, than generally pictured. It's wider, you know? And Carter's picture definitely is wider than even the Library of Congress picture. But the Library of Congress is more narrow than the painting. Carter's picture really just matches the painting. Mr. Carter has taken photographic copies of the daguerreotype, which proposes to touch up with India ink, and copied again until the picture is as true to nature as possible. So that's the Deseret News. So Emma Hell Smith Vitamin, she had the original daguerreotype in her possession upon her death on April 30th, 1879. So again, her testimony in November 1879. Had a long time, just letting you know. Further evidence was found it had originally been a gift from Joseph Smith Jr. to his eldest daughter, Julia Murdoch Smith, per Joseph Smith III's October 26, 1888 letter to Joseph F. Smith over a disagreement in ownership of an engraving of Joseph Smith. So they've been arguing since 1869 about paintings, photos, and stuff. So Joseph Smith III is saying the plate is one we engraved from an oil painting my possession painted about the same time, probably by the same painter as the one of your father, from which the plate of your father was made. This painting is strongly corroborated by a daguerreotype taken of father and kept by my adopted sister as a gift from father, and now in possession of my brother Alexander. You can see a copy of the daguerreotype at C.W. Carter's gallery in your city at any time, as I had him photograph it. So C.W. Carter photographed a daguerreotype of the painting. And so this leads some to believe, a lot of church historians, a lot of them are like, well, when he's talking about a daguerreotype, it's just a daguerreotype of the painting. He does not say the photograph is of the painting or the painting is of the photograph. That makes sense. So before Joseph Smith died, Joseph Smith III states that he gave his daughter Julia a daguerreotype of him. But as he mentions Carter's photograph copy of the daguerreotype, we know this copy was simply of the forward-facing painting. The artwork, however, is also noted on the bottom as being a copy of the daguerreotype. So in their mind, copying could also mean looking at the daguerreotype and sketching the features. And I remember finding it very interesting that some of those sketches emphasized Joseph Smith's ears a lot more, showed more of a cipher, kind of like Macy and Block, Mackay, and Ronald Roman in their paper, Hidden Things Shall Come to Life, out the Larson picture. Believe this daguerreotype of the forward-facing painting is the only photograph Joseph Smith saw. And he really thought it was a photograph of his father. And I'm of the opinion that the forward-facing painting came first in 1842. The daguerreotype came for later, 1844, because that's when Lucian Foster was in. As there is evidence, Joseph III knew the daguerreotype was done by Lucian Foster, and shows the confusion on the years in his 1910 letter to the Salt Lake Tribune. And so we know Foster wasn't in Nauvoo, and he wasn't near Joseph Smith until April 1844. September 1842, big painting. April 1844 is when Lucy Foster's there. And New South Wales does investigating from 1885 to 1930. He is asking, researching. He's the expert. His 1910 letter to the Salt Lake Tribune, Joseph Smith III writes, March 5th, 1910, a copy of which was handed to me by a neighbor, cut purporting to represent life-size portrait of my father, Joseph Smith. I regret the statement made that there is no authentic picture of my father in existence, for this is a mistake. If your artist, Mr. Ramsey, should ever visit the capital of Iowa, he will find a duplicate oil painting of Joseph Smith in one of the halls, placed there by myself and my son, at the request of Mr. Charles Aldrich, then curator of the Historical Society. There is an authentic oil painting now in the possession of my son, Frederick M. Smith, at Independence, Missouri, painted by the same artist that painted one of my Uncle Hiram, which has formed a basis of pictures of him since his family went to Utah. It fortunately happens to us that this portrait painted in 1843. So is this portrait the one of Hiram, of Joseph? Is it the duplicate oil painting? It's just saying this portrait. Painting in 1843 is sustained, like you're keeping something held up, keeping it from dying in its characteristic likeness to my father by the daguerreotype in our possession, taken later the same year by an artist by the name of Lucian Foster. So that's where Lucian Foster comes again. He's not near Joseph Smith until April 1844. The picture in the Tribune looks like it had been made up with father, and so he just sort of criticizes it. And he also states the picture represents a curly-headed man, but my father's hair was not curly. And it's quite light, and just bills. He doesn't like Ramsey's picture. He wants him in the first paragraph to come see the duplicate oil painting in Iowa. And then he talks about a daguerreotype to get his father's likeness, sustained characteristic likeness. When I think of the word characteristic likeness, it's sort of, she sort of got your characteristic likeness, but are you saying someone is exactly that person? Are you trying to be exact? No. And he's trying to keep the integrity of this old painting. That's a fact, in my opinion. There's no evidence that that painting was totally changed. And so in the 1962 article by William McCarl, so he wrote this whole thesis for BYU, and when he read this letter, he concluded that the forward-facing painting was basically based on the daguerreotype, because Joseph Smith mentions having on his father, and later complains about Ramsey's painting showing a ring on his father's right hand in Ramsey's painting. And McCarl sees, well, in our LDS painting, there's also a ring in the right hand. In my right hand. I turn this way. That's the way Joseph Smith is facing in most of Maudsley's paintings. And then his right hand has a gold ring on the right hand, not the left. And he said, therefore, it's conclusive just by that and then he's talking about a daguerreotype, and then if it was a daguerreotype, it'd be in reverse position, and then the ring would be on the left, and that would make sense. And then the daguerreotype of the painting, and the painting is based on the daguerreotype of him, or it just gets really confusing in 1962. Now, what blew it out of the water is this 1879 advertisement in the Saints Herald, and Joseph Smith III was the editor-in-chief, and less than 20 days earlier than August 15th, 1879, in July, is when the Library of Congress picture was submitted. So it's a photo of the painting. They say it's a photo of the painting, because it is. So again, August 15th, 1879, in the Saints Herald, Joseph Smith III is the editor. He's paid someone to photograph the painting. He's selling it in his own newspaper. And it states, This portrait was taken by a painter from New York, and Joseph Smith was 36 years of age and represents him as he appeared at that time. Has remained in the possession of Emma until the close of her life, when it was by her committed to the hands of President Joseph Smith with permission to have it copyright secured. Copies can be procured of Jane A. Robinson in Peoria or of Louis C. Bodeman in Nauvoo. So that's really nice that Joseph III is allowing his stepfather to make some money off of it. The name of the artist David Roger comes from Joseph Smith's own journal, where he states September 16th through the 20th. He took Sunday off, but it's really more like 3 days, but he was painting with Rogers, and Joseph Smith was still 36 years old. So again, the Saints Herald in 1879 said it was taken when Joseph Smith was 36. He died at age 38. So he was still 36 in September of 1842. But by December 1842, he turned 37. So the 1843 date is like understandable. It's like the end of 1842. And Joseph Smith III states many times his memories of around when his father died, it just blurry, like he blocked a lot out. It was very traumatizing for him. So either way, these 3 quotes by him so far stating the forward-facing painting was done before his father's death, and so was the daguerreotype. So that letter to Joseph F. Smith, he's saying this daguerreotype was made when Joseph Smith was alive, and he gave it to Julian Roanoke Smith. Okay, 1910 letter, he's stating, so that's one. So Joseph Smith III says in the 1910 letter that it was made like about 1843 or when Lucian Foster, maybe the daguerreotype might have been around the same time. It actually seems pretty consistent that he thinks the painting came first. The daguerreotype came later because Lucian Foster wasn't there in 1842 when his father was 36 years old. So either way, 1843 is before he died in 1844, so that's time too. And then the 1879, now I'm jumping around dates, but 1879. His own newspaper. He's the editor-in-chief. He's the one saying, put this advertisement here because I got the painting of my father. My mother died. In April, it's now July. I've got it photographed, sent it to Library of Congress. He's working with his of course it's gonna be accurate, right? Plus 3 times Joseph Smith III says the painting was done before his father died. That's consistent, very consistent with Joseph Smith III. So Junius F. Wells spoke 2 times about the forward-facing painting being by David Rogers. The first time was in 1885, not in 1930, it was in 1885. Article for the Contributor talking about how he simply knew the Carter photographs were simply a forward-facing painting, and he knew this whole story. He's just saying, oh, I know all this, right? And it's 1885. And the whole painting process for Joseph was so depressed in 1842 that Rogers couldn't get a really good portrait, and he was scared to go back to Missouri, and he looked terrible. So Rogers made jokes to get him to laugh, and he was roaring laughing. This is in the 1885 Contributor. So much that Rogers couldn't get a good painting. That's why it's not that good. It's not that good, but I can be very critical of the shrine, especially since it's only like 10 hours. Isn't that long, really? But so it's then in February 1830 that explains why he knows all this stuff about David Rogers. And then he describes and gets specific that in 1875, 1876. So in 1876 really is when he is meeting with Emma. And so he writes about it first just 10 years after. Okay. And this one, he's more specific. He's had since 1885 to 1930 to figure, and he just knows a lot more by 1930. Junius F. Wells concludes, this concludes the record relating to the painting, which being finished, hung first in the Mansion House, afterwards in the Nauvoo House, in the possession of the prophet's widow, Emma Smith. On visiting her in the winter of 1875-76, she entertained me very hospitably, showed me the painting, then hanging in her bedroom in the Nauvoo House. I asked her if it were a good likeness of the prophet. She replied, no. He could not have a good portrait, or his countenance was changing all the time. Like, he can't stay still. And like, there are so many quotes of him when he would give speeches. Like, he was not a public speaker. His legs would be shaking, and he would be shaking. Like, he had so much anxiety. He was just not, he was actually pretty shy. So as far as public speaking goes, he had to get over his shyness being the prophet, but you know. So what she thought of it, she just, it wasn't a good painting. So like, it's not good. His countenance is changing. Then I asked her what he thought of it, and she replied, I can tell you, for I asked him, and he said, Emma, that is a nice painting of a silly boy, but it don't much look like a prophet of the Lord. Okay. Then the timeline, 1899, Joseph Smith III donates the commissioned duplicate oil painting by Victor Cress, mentioned by Joseph Smith III in his letter. Whole paragraph about that, tiny paragraph with authentic one. It's like, I'm not really sure. But Ramsey needs to see this duplicate, which really, quality-wise, it's frankly worse than David Rogers. However, having analyzed, when I saw this in 2022, and I've been analyzing my photo in the death mask for 5 years, just looking at it, it's like, oh my goodness, right there. I can see right there where his, like, you see the eyebrow hairs are like this, and they just kind of bump up. And that's happened to me if I rubbed my eyes a whole lot and just was really itchy, and then all of a sudden I was, I have a little bald spot in my eyebrow, right? But that was there. But it's very pronounced in the duplicate, subtly there in the authentic, very much there in my photo. And it shows the eyes that go like this. And the fact that I thought I needed to tilt the death mask like this, I thought he was tilting his head. I was totally ignorant in my first video where I first did the sketch overlays in July of 2017 when I first made it up. I just didn't see anywhere. I really did make it up. I didn't watch someone else sketch this and then move it to analyze photos, other than to create a cartoon of himself. And so yeah, when I did that, I tilted the death mask, but it didn't. But in the oil portrait and on the death mask, his left eye is just, it's just lower. And inside Cliff Monty's artwork is where I really still like see a lot of identifying. I could see like the scar coming from his eye a lot more. But anyway, Joseph III closed his 1910 letter with, I am enclosing a photograph taken from the oil portrait referred to. Truly yours, Joseph Smith. And that's where it ends it. So hopefully this, trying to keep this short and sweet. I have a lot going on coming up soon, but I'll just be really, really busy, which is great and wonderful and scary. But I probably won't be too active on social media for a little bit. But yeah, life is good, but this is one I really kept being asked about that painting. Unfortunately, I didn't know the whole story until Tegan had written her full part. So Tegan, really, our paper was, So, but that's why I've been analyzing. Now I feel free to analyze myself, and analyze it to the artwork, and I'm just like, wow. So even though there's artistic liberties, these are not photographs. They could be subjective. Whatever, they're still important. Nice little cell phone covers, you could call them sleeves. And so they're nice velvet. So please find my website. So if you want to just hold your cell phone, but not be carrying a gigantic purse, and you want to be simplistic, you could. Or if you're like a kid in high school and you just want to protect your phone, but keep your phone with you, you got your backpack. Or if you just, it would just fit over the phone. And it has one little pocket where like a teenager could put like their ID, but this is fleece. So it's very cushiony, very, like a nice little pillow for your cell phone. But I think one of the greatest things one of the reasons I really wanted it is because I have all these little, like those purses that go around, but when I throw my phone in there, like I sometimes have my sunglasses in there and some things that could scratch it. And it's just really great to have this because it's small, it'll just fit in your purse, or it could just be your purse, because today your cell phone could be your ID, your cell phone
can be everything. If you drive, you can just have your driver's license on your cell phone. You can pay for things with your cell phone, and your keys just go in your pocket, or like get a little clip, and it's just very, very minimalistic. And with tariffs and everything, I'm stitching a little bit better on this one. Some of them I stitched inside, but I decided it was just a little bit quicker to do this. Some of these are like this. So, but they all have the nice little part where you can put just your driver's license if you want to, or your credit card if you want to have your debit card with you if you're a kid and you're in college and you have to have your ID with you, but you want to keep this. You have your backpack and you just want to throw your phone in there, it'll be protected. And so I'm selling these for about $30 on my website because it's real stretch velvet and it's got real fleece in there and very, very hard to sew, very difficult. Velvet moves and so does fleece. They're very soft. And it's also, if you like sensory things, just that's partly why I'm like, oh, I would just love to have something velvet that I can hold and to have this is basically like a scrunchie, but you can just have my cell phone, talk to you, just grab your cell phone, put it back in. You could even turn your phone upside down and just keep it like this and just talk to someone trying to get directions. You can be like, hey, getting directions. My cell phone's upside down. And how many times I've been talking to people trying to find somewhere or just trying to talk to someone on speakerphone. And all I want is that last little speaker. You could do that. So, I mean, we might all just be needing to protect our phones more and keep the same cell phone that we have and just keep it protected. Keep it from falling. You want to protect it from the fall. How about just keeping it from falling? That's just sort of the idea there. Protect it from your keys, protect it from other objects in your purse or your backpack. And just something soft to hold and just keep it really quick near you because in the world we live in, we use our cell phone as a calculator, as a camera, and we're always taking photos of people and just keep it there and you can just still run around, be with your kid and then take it out, take a picture, put it back in, without putting it in your pocket, worrying about it falling out. Anyway. So, but yeah, thank you so much for the new followers. And I am sorry. It really is. My health was really, it's really been up and down. I'll try to be more interesting and more understandable and just more prepared with something that I want to say, which is what I used to do before I started really getting sick and being on wrong meds and all that stuff. Anyway, have a good day.